Bigfoot enthusiast. Scott here from Blue Mountain Bigfoot Research, and
I'm Hannah from Squatching with Hannah.
And we are in Maine finally. I know last week we were in Holy Toledo, but we made it to Maine, and we're all set up to spend the summer here looking for Bigfoot. And
I want to thank all of you who suffered with us through all of our technical difficulties back in Holy Toledo last week. Thank you so much for your loyalty and your sense of humor. We really do appreciate the sense of humor.
We do. And I noticed that Danny just said, COVID rocks. Let's do it again next year. I'm like,
let's not.
Let's not, and say we did.
No, let's not even do that.
Okay. So, yeah, we'll get into our COVID update. We're still at war with 1,000 Trails.
Yeah.
We have been trying to get a hold of them for
2 weeks.
2 weeks now, and they keep ghosting us. So if you're out there, yell at them. So I want to tell you where we're at. We are in Millinocket, Maine, and if you look in the middle of the map there, there is a mountain called Mount Katahdin. I can never say it right. I say Katahdin, but Katahdin. And it is actually the highest point in Maine, and there are some Bigfoot reports in this area we're going to check out this summer.
Let's take a minute. Let's have a compare and contrast of what the highest mountain in Maine might mean to our Pacific Northwest homies.
Yeah, to all our Pacific Northwest mountain our homies, the highest mountain in Maine is 5,268 feet. My hometown was that high, so
so that's like a green rolling hill in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, because they don't out here in Maine, they don't have what we have in the Pacific Northwest, like Mount Hood and Mount Rainier.
They don't have
Mount St. Helens. They don't have volcanoes, and our volcanoes are 11, 12, 13,000 feet. So,
but it's still a mountain worth climbing, and I hope they open the state park so we can go climb it.
Yep, and if you look down below where it says where the mountain is, there's a big lake, and that is Millinocket Lake, and that's what we're setting on the edge of. So if you want to come check us out, we are at Wilderness Edge Campground. We'll be there for a couple more months.
And to sweeten the pot, when you come here, you can enjoy some genuine Mainly Coffee Wilderness Edge Campground blend.
So we are sponsored.
Sort of, kind of.
Yeah.
Not really. But anyway, that's what I'm enjoying tonight. It is a dark roasted blend with strong notes of dark chocolate, smoky vanilla, and a hint of berry in the finish. And let me just say this right now. I am the coffee connoisseur. You already know that. This is the first coffee roast I have ever tasted that lives up to the description on the package.
Well, there we go.
So,
and we're from the land of Starbucks. So... All right, we got a great show for you guys tonight. Tonight we have...
the Anderson family.
The Anderson family. Wait, Hannah, you want to introduce them?
Yes, this is Greg Anderson. And yes, we are shaking hands.
Yep. That did not just happen.
No. Okay. And his wife, Michelle, and their son, Dustin. The camera's over there.
Yeah. Look at the blue lights. Okay. All right. So we thought we'd do something different tonight. And what we're going to do is we're going to have the family here interview us. Actually ask us questions about Bigfoot. And he said that's a hill, by the way. So,
yes, that is a hill.
So, and I've got some visual aids with me to help me out, answering some questions. And so, first of all, I want to ask you guys a question real quick, is who in the family believes in Bigfoot? All right. All right. You don't have to just because I'm here. All right. Okay.
We really are not that impressive.
Yeah.
We are not.
Yeah. And we did a whole show once of explaining why I don't believe in Bigfoot. I actually don't believe in Bigfoot. That's because I've studied the evidence and found it credible. I know Bigfoot exists.
And you've seen him face to face, so
yeah.
you know. Kind of takes the whole belief factor.
Takes the belief out of it, I'm sure.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so you guys are from Massachusetts?
Yeah, Cape Cod.
Cape Cod.
Massachusetts, down in West Yarmouth.
So, wow.
We learned that there was 2 Bigfoot sightings down there.
Yeah, we did.
I want to ask a Massachusetts question. Does Cheers really exist? I knew it! I knew it! I want to go to Cheers.
Okay.
That's all I care about. I just want to go to Cheers.
All right. So, that's fun. So, what do you got for me? You got some questions?
You got one, Dustin?
Frozen. You got one?
Well,
okay.
How long have you guys been searching for Bigfoot?
Okay. Actually, we've been at this for 25 years.
You've been at this for 25 years.
Yeah, she's been at it for like
two.
So actually, I've been doing it for a long time, and all of yours know what got me into this was my work in anthropology with the Native American tribes and their belief in Bigfoot. It goes back years and years. So I started looking into it 25 years ago, and as an anthropologist, I decided to start looking at the footprint casts. And the footprint casts started showing me stuff that I didn't realize was real. I mean, I can tell the difference between a fake print and a real print in a matter of seconds, because I know what the bone structure in a foot looks like, because as an anthropologist, we study human evolution, and bones are our thing. We're archaeologists. We dig those up and find the different species of humans, and help categorize those.
So is that how the footprint will look in the sand or in the dirt? Like certain bones will leave certain pressure marks in the soil, or?
Yep, and certain bone structures.
Oh, while you're rooting around in your box there, I want to give a big shout out to Margaret Anderson, who is Dustin and Dylan's grandma. She's watching you
right now.
You can't escape her.
Of course.
You cannot
Hi, Mom.
ever escape a good grandmother.
He said, "Hi, Mom." Hi, Grandma. Okay. So what I have here, if you've seen the Patterson film, right?
Yep.
Yes.
This is the actual cast from Patty, from that Bigfoot. This is the actual, well, it's a copy of it, but it's the actual footprint that they cast that day in 1967. What's interesting, if you look at this, it looks like a big flat foot. But if you look at it this way, there's some things you can notice. If you notice, there's a dip right here in the center.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see that. Okay.
Yeah, I can see that.
There's a dip, right? Okay. So what causes that dip in the center is the fact that the Bigfoot, when it steps down on the ground, it steps with its flat foot like this, then its foot bends in the middle, and then it brings its foot straight up like this. That's why the toes are slightly deeper than the front pad. The front pad's deeper than the back, and there's a dip in the center. That's called the mid-tarsal break. So when that bends and they put their toes in the ground further, that shows me that this foot hit the ground flat, bent in the middle, and off the toes when it lifted up. Now,
so it flexes in the middle.
It flexes in the middle.
Whereas a human foot wouldn't.
What does Dustin's foot have instead of a mid-tarsal break?
You have an arch. If we did not, as humans, have an arch in our foot would bend in the middle like a primate and have that very same thing. So they walk differently than we do. So that's when I look at casts, when somebody shows me a cast, like I found a Bigfoot cast and they show it to me, it takes me seconds to look at it and say, oh, that's fake or that's real. Because I know the bone structure in this foot and how it works. So there'll be like a dip in the middle. This will be thinner than this, and the toes will be deeper than this. So, cool.
And that's science.
And that is science.
Is that evolution?
That is evolution. Well,
so
somewhat, yeah.
Sort of. So why are humans designed differently than Bigfoot? Why are our feet? Because we're all part of this overall primate family.
Right. Because we're not 8 feet tall and weigh 600 pounds.
Thank God.
So if we were 8 to 10 feet tall and weigh 600 to 800 pounds, we need a different foot structure to support
Right.
that.
Okay.
That makes sense.
So, got one?
You ready?
What do you think,
You
Dustin?
ready?
You got a good question?
Have you ever had a close encounter with a Bigfoot?
A what?
A close encounter.
Have I ever had a close encounter with a Bigfoot? I have had several, actually. One was a Bigfoot tore a tree out of the ground and laid it next to my tent in the middle of the night. That was a close encounter with a Bigfoot, though I wasn't awake for that one. Another
Great story.
Yeah, and another time, my friend and I were out in the woods looking for Bigfoot at night, and we were shining a spotlight through the woods, and we saw two big red glowing eyes, and it was across like a little dip like this here if we were in those trees over there, you know. So my buddy, we keep lasers on our, like those lasers you put on guns. We put them on our flashlights, so we can point at stuff with them. So we can turn the flashlight off, turn the laser on, and say it's right there, you know. So he held the laser on it. Well, where it was, because we flashed the light and then we flashed it back and it was gone. He held the laser where the eyeballs were. I crawled down the hill and back up the other side and discovered that it was next to a tree that had no limbs on it, and it was 8 feet in the air where those eyes were. So it wasn't a bird on a limb. It was something standing next to the tree, 8 foot tall. So we saw that, and then that very same night, just a few minutes later, we went down to check out to see if we can find footprints in the area, and something started throwing rocks at us out of the trees. Like, get out of here. You're
getting too close.
You're getting too close. So that was the second encounter. And my closest encounter happened when a friend of mine and I, actually, he's a friend now, but he wasn't at the time. I just met him that day. And what had happened was, it was his birthday? Yep. And his daughter calls me up, and they lived in the same town we were. And his daughter called me up and asked me if her dad really loved Bigfoot. And for his birthday, if I would just take him out in the woods. And I said, that'd be fun to go look for Bigfoot on his birthday. So that's what we did. So he came by my house in the afternoon. We went out in the woods and we're hiking along this trail. And there's a reason I took him to this spot, because I had just got 5 or 6 reports from other people about seeing Bigfoots in this area. So I wanted to go to that area anyway. So we're hiking along this trail and we smell this really bad smell. Bigfoot smell bad. They're really musky.
Like body odor smell?
Like body odor.
Like kind of wet dog fighting with a skunk in a dumpster.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah. That's about the best description. And I've had people try to explain it to me before, and then they always say it's like a wet dog and a skunk, you know, in garbage. So when I smelt it, I was like, oh, that's what they've been talking about, you know. So I told the guy that was with me, I said, let's just keep walking because we're kind of on a muddy trail. It was raining. And I go, maybe it'll follow us and we can get footprints, because there's no way to see it in the dense forest. You know, if you look out here, you can only see a few feet in the forest, and then anything past that's gone. And especially this time of day, and this is the time of day we were out there. So we ended up hiking about a quarter of a mile, and the smell went away. So I said, we need to go back. So we turned around and we went back. And as we were hiking back down the trail, the smell came back. And then off in the woods, we heard a kind of a grunt roar, kind of like that. And we both stopped in our tracks, and we were looking around trying to figure out, I got a kind of a general idea where it came from, right? And we couldn't see anything. And we were looking really hard. So I went, "Arr!" And
back at it.
Yeah, and it went right back at me. So I finally saw it, and it was 200 feet away from me, down the hill, down the bank, and it was in a little opening in the trees, and I saw this face and this head and shoulders going back and forth like this at me.
Wow.
So I started snapping pictures. I got the blurry picture of the Bigfoot like you're supposed to.
We have our fourth guest joining us.
Here, Jill, come around this side.
This
Around the
is
back.
Dylan Anderson. He's finally been pried off of his bike.
Yeah. Hey, these folks are in the campground enjoying the weekend. It's awesome. So
it's hard. It's easy for adults to forget how much work goes into riding your bike all day. It's great. It's like serious kid work.
So that was my third encounter, by the way. So it was 200 feet away from me. I actually saw it with my own eyes. I got a picture of it. And where it was standing, we found 3 9-inch footprints with 3 15-inch footprints next to them. So the one I saw was only 6 foot tall because we shot lasers through trees and measured everything, tried to figure out where it was and how far away it was, and we got all that done. And we found out that the one I was looking at was only 6 feet tall. The one I didn't see was probably 10 feet tall. So it was a mom and a child, or a daddy and a child, standing there. And the one I saw, we heard a whistle off in the woods, and it turned and walked away. So I think Mom whistled and said, "Get over here." So where have we heard that?
Parenthood is the same. It's a multi-species phenomenon.
Yeah. It's not,
Every species
yeah.
is the same. Parents telling children what to do.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
Follow them in. Yes.
So, any other questions?
Any questions about Bigfoot?
Yeah.
By the way, your grandmother is watching.
Yeah.
Mammy's watching.
Why do you want to find Bigfoot?
Why do I want to find
Good
Bigfoot?
question, Dylan.
That is a
Awesome
great question.
What's your why?
Well, one, Spike TV has a $10 million bounty you can get.
Oh.
But
I didn't know that. I'm in.
But more importantly for me is having the experiences I've had and listening to literally thousands of people tell me their stories over the last 25 years is I want to authenticate these stories for the people, because there's a little bit of stigma that goes along when you say I saw a Bigfoot. You get a lot of like, yeah, right, whatever, But I want to do it for the people. One, the 10 million wouldn't hurt, but another thing, as an anthropologist, to be able to classify a new species would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be pretty exciting, I'm sure.
Yeah, and so that would be something really cool to do as an anthropologist. And I say as an anthropologist, we study humans, right? So guess on what I think Bigfoot is.
You think it's a human?
It's a human.
That didn't quite make the leap up the evolutionary ladder? Or...
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Let's talk about that. Yeah. Okay.
Let's talk about evolution.
Let's talk about, yes. Okay, so there have been hundreds and hundreds of species of humans found, right? So you've got the caveman, right? Neanderthal, cave guy, right? It might be. Okay, and I'm going to shock you a little bit. Okay, so the way evolution, our evolution has happened, it isn't like, that picture you see of the monkey and it turns into the guy?
Yeah.
Well, if you see that in your textbooks, rip the page out and throw it one. Don't actually, but
or do
because that's not actually how it worked. Okay, this is how it worked. Somewhere in all these species of humans, there was a common ancestor. There was this original humanoid thing way back there. So instead of looking like a family tree, let's think about it as a waterfall. So we've got a human way up here at top. And as the waterfall comes down, the water breaks up and spreads out. Well,
Is it because of the rocks?
Yeah, because it hits the rocks.
Yeah.
Right. Good point. Because as it hits the rocks, as the species moved from one place to the other, they run into rocks. They run into a different habitat that they're not used to living in. So they have to adapt to that habitat. So even their bodies change over, thousands of years to live in that habitat. That's why we have all these hundreds of different species of humans. But remember, they all spread out at the same time. So at any given time in human evolution, there's been 3 species of humans living together at the same time. In fact, most recently, there's Homo sapiens. Who are they?
That's us, right, Bill?
Yeah.
That's us.
Yeah.
We're Homo sapiens, right? Well, Homo sapiens, Homo neanderthal,
Okay,
Homo nadali, that's a new one they just found, by the way. Okay? Homo erectus, Homo heidelbergensis, and Homo floresiensis all live together at the same time. In fact, Homo floresiensis actually developed after we did. They're a younger species than us, but they just died off earlier. And we found out recently what happened to Homo neanderthal. They're still alive. Here's the shocker, okay? They were close enough to us that when we encountered them, when Homo sapiens moved into Europe,
A boy met a girl.
A boy met a girl.
You know what happens there?
Story as old as time.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. So, if you're from Europe, if you have European blood in you, particularly French, okay,
A lot of people around here seem to do.
which I think in this area, a lot of people are French. That's where my ancestors are actually from. Them, you're in Maine, not too far from here, and they're French Canadians. So, you are 3 to 4% Neanderthal. They discovered that with DNA. They got Neanderthal DNA, and as the guy with the geneticist was looking at it, he goes, "Wait, I've seen those pairs of DNA," and then they started tracking it in humans. So actually, a lot of the DNA places now, like Ancestry, or what's the word? Ancestry.
23andMe.
Yeah, 23andMe and all those like that. When you get that done, they actually will tell you how much of a percentage Neanderthal you are. So if you see that guy that looks like a caveman, he probably
He
is.
might be a caveman.
My father has
He might be.
Yeah.
So with that said, why would this be the only time in the last million years that there's only been one species of human on the planet? What if Bigfoot is another species of human that just we haven't discovered yet?
Yeah.
So we're about halfway through our show, and I
Okay.
want to do another few shout outs
Okay.
here. Paula, welcome. We're so glad you could finally make it live. And don't interrupt me. Special hello to Hilton from Australia, land of the Yowie.
Okay.
We would love to go to Australia. We'll see if, like intercontinental flight ever happens again.
Yeah.
And Hilton said, I'd imagine Dean from Yowie Hunter would be the contact if you came to Australia.
Okay.
All right,
Awesome.
we'll keep that. Look him up on Facebook.
Well, yeah. We will.
So some interesting things about Maine that we've discovered so far. All of you Pacific Northwest campers that complain about mosquitoes, stop.
Yeah.
Just stop.
You have no idea.
You have no idea. We have encountered these things here called mayflies, and they draw blood.
Yeah.
And they draw blood from me, and I'm not a bug magnet. And so anyway, mayflies by the horde.
Yep.
Anyway, some other things about Maine. You can buy lobster from pickup trucks on the side of the road.
Yes.
And it's cheaper than beef right now.
Yeah. And they have fiddleheads, which you guys in the West don't even know what those are.
Nope, not eating them. I ain't doing it. No.
I ain't doing it.
I ain't doing it. And something really, really interesting. Now, you just heard Scott mention that his family's from this area. So when we drove in on Tuesday night,
Oh, yeah.
by the way, shout out to Mr. Dale Levesque, who is on right now.
He is?
Yeah, so they got to chatting. Mr. Levesque and Mr. Violette here got to chatting and found out within about 3 days that their great grandparents were brother
Brothers
and sister.
So yeah, we traveled
howdy,
all the way
cousin.
across the United States to go to work at a campground where a guy I'm working with happens to be my cousin. So
So small world.
Small world.
Yeah. Okay, I will not sing the song. We do have one question from the audience.
Okay.
From Anne. Thank you for Anne Walsh. Thank you for asking your question. If Bigfoot exists, why has a body never been found? Your favorite question.
Oh, yes, that is one of my favorite questions. Okay, so there's several theories on that, and one is very interesting. A few years ago, a fellow Bigfooter anthropologist, he's passed away now, but Dr. Grover Krantz from Washington State University.
Yay, go Cougars.
Yeah, yeah. He put up $25,000 for anyone who could find a dead bear in the woods that died naturally.
Naturally is the key word.
Naturally is the key word, and you can't just shoot it and bring it in. I mean, it has to be a natural, died of old age or disease or anything in the woods on its own. Couldn't have any bullet holes in it. Nobody's ever done it. He's never had to pay out that $25,000.
That's a good thing because he's been dead for a long time now. So
Yeah.
What do bears do with their dead that die naturally?
Yeah.
What?
So there's the thing. So do they die in their dens when they're sick and old? There's a possibility, and unless you're searching dens, you'll probably never find it or even find the dens. But here's the deal. One of my theories is, well, it's not really a theory, it's kind of proven, is as I go into the woods, a lot of times I will find dead elk because there's lots of those and you run across them, but all we find is piles of fur. No bones, no guts, no anything else. So what happens when something dies in the woods? We did an experiment once. Well, I didn't. I saw it on TV. But
the scientific
field group did an experiment, Bigfooters. And what they did is they took a dead deer that got hit on the side of the road. What's that? No, that's not a bad idea. But no, what they did is they took it and they staked it down on the ground and they put a camera on it that watched it. It took 7 days until there was nothing left of that deer in the woods. Only 7 days.
Nature disposes of waste really quick.
So here's the deal. One, you got predation from other animals, coyotes, vultures, maggots. The bugs are the next step. They wipe out almost everything, all the flesh. They take the flesh off the bones completely. And a lot of people don't know this, but porcupines eat bones. That's their diet. They need a lot of calcium for those little spikes on their backs, So that is actually porcupine's main diet are bones they find in the woods. They just eat them. Just crunch them up and eat them.
Like a dog.
They're giant rodents actually. But anyway, so there's that. And another thing is, in forests like this, there is 1.5 inches of forest loam happens every year. See all these leaves on the ground? Next year, that'll be dirt, and there'll be another pile of leaves on top of it. And then there'll be dirt and leaves and dirt and leaves.
Composting.
Yeah, composting. So it doesn't take very long to bury anything that's left. And unless we're out in the forest digging up, 3 feet down the whole forest, we'll never find anything. So it's a virtual impossibility to find bones in the woods. And thirdly, am I on thirdly?
I have no idea. I lost you a long time ago. But.
So, and thirdly, if Bigfoot are humanoid-like and they live in family structures, which I believe they do, mom, dad, kids, when mom and dad pass away, do they bury their dead? There's a good possibility that they do that. So, or at least, take it into caves or, pile rocks on it or something, have some kind of, because we know Neanderthal buried their dead, and a lot of the other human species buried their dead, because we find them, with like trinkets and gifts and stuff put on the bodies when they're buried. But where Bigfoot lives, and this is now I'm on fourthly. Okay, where Bigfoot lives.
Oh, we'll go with this.
How do you put the dead body on the back of your truck?
Yeah, that would be bad. So, no, my plan on catching Bigfoot's a whole different way of doing it. I'm not going to catch one. I have a gun that, those tranquilizer darts that put them to sleep. Well, I have a gun, but I don't have the darts to put them to sleep because I don't think I would know. In fact, I can't even get the stuff to do it because I'm not a vet. But
how much strength does it take?
How much strength does it take for an 800-pound? Do I just shoot it and make it mad? But no, I have DNA darts, and what they do is they hit the creature, they draw blood, and fall off.
Oh, cool.
Huh.
So my plan is, and my dart gun, I have a GoPro camera on it, so we can actually film the whole thing happening. The dart hitting the creature, it falling on the ground, us collecting the evidence on camera, the whole thing, nonstop. Chain of evidence, yeah, kind of thing.
Do you put the
And then the
tracking
DNA?
dart in him and then it's on a map and then you can track where he goes?
Oh, he's saying tranquilizer dart
Tranquilizer.
to make him go to sleep. But he just wants to shoot it with a dart and get a blood sample for proof.
Yeah, DNA.
Doesn't want to hurt it.
Yeah.
Just prove its existence.
Yeah.
Cool.
Right. So that's why we have never found a body, mostly because nature disposes of it.
Yeah, and well, I was going to say my fourthly thing was where Bigfoot lives are in dense forests like this.
And we have never seen denser forests than we've seen here. Oh my gosh.
I know. But what was kind of different from what we're used to out west is we have trees, but we have giant trees. I mean, we have our
30-foot circumference.
Yeah, no,
trees.
they're 6 feet around and 100 feet tall, and these don't get tall. And I noticed that you don't have tall trees here.
You can see skies through the forest here.
Yeah, you can see the sky, and where we're from, you can't see the sky because the trees are too tall. But yeah,
It's basically all shady.
yeah,
it's very shady,
Very shady.
and it's really easy to walk through a forest in the Pacific Northwest because there's room between the trees.
Yeah, the trees are spread out.
But here,
It's like, how do you walk through these forests?
I want to know how on earth any of us survived. Oh, I don't know how the Native Americans hid in the trees. I don't know. It is like serious wild country out here.
It is. And my question, if anybody out there wants to put it in the comments, answer my question here. How does a moose get through this dense of forest with those big, huge horns? I don't know how they do that. Yeah.
Oh, and those of you who were following my video series, which I'm not done, I've got a few more days to edit, but those of you who are following on the road to Maine, and seeing my overall assessment of eastern United States freeway conditions, until you've driven the backwoods of Maine, you do not know what a bad road is like. Just and if you don't have 10-ply tires, don't come here.
Yeah.
We have heard nothing but 10-ply tires.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I'm learning all sorts of things.
Yeah, we took a drive yesterday up a dirt road here.
Stacyville Road.
And it ended up, it was just dirt, And we ended up crossing these bridges that looked like they were built in like 18 something out of wood. And they were like, one of them, I eased the truck out on it just really slowly. It was a short bridge. Luckily, my truck was about the same length as the bridge, but it started cracking. So I just gunned it. So I got the front end off it. So
we came back via the freeway.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
So, any more questions, guys?
You got a question?
We have 23 minutes.
Oh, wow, we're good.
We've got tons of time.
How much times have you experimented Bigfoot?
Experienced Bigfoot.
Yeah,
Huh?
experience.
Like
Okay.
seen them?
How many
Yeah.
Well,
times?
we talked about that a little earlier, but it's been like 4 times that I've got experiences with Bigfoot. Now, if you want to count experiences finding footprints, I find
I've even found a footprint.
yeah, we
before.
find footprints every year.
20 or 13 maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah,
20 or
It's
15.
at least.
It's 5.
They have
You,
some.
you want to see some cool ones?
They have
This one right here.
fantastic ones.
Oh, there's a good
Look at the
story.
size of that one.
Okay, look at the size of this one. Yeah, this
That's
one's 15 inches long. But
Can I
there's
try and compare it to my foot?
yeah. Here,
Yeah, hold
So
your
put your
foot
foot
up there,
up.
buddy.
let's see if we can get it.
20 more inches.
Yeah, there you go.
Not quite a Bigfoot.
You're not quite a Bigfoot, but there's something very interesting about this one, and this one kind of helped convince me with the bone structure was one of the things. Like I said before, I stopped believing in Bigfoot when I studied the evidence and found it credible. I mean, there's evidence that proved to me that these things exist, and this is one of them. Now, this was found by a gentleman by the name of Paul Freeman, and if you look up on YouTube, there's a thing called the Freeman film, and that was taken actually 20 miles from where I grew up in Oregon. But the interesting thing about this one is it does have, because this kind of slid sideways a little bit, so you got, this isn't a toe, that's mud that kind of built up, so you got the toes here, all 5 toes. So so we don't have that perfect picture, but there's still the dip, there's still, the depth of the toes. But I want you to look really closely in that little toe right there. Do you see something?
You see them there?
What do you see right there? No? Look at your finger and then look at that little toe. Do you see the fingerprints?
The prints in there? You
Yeah.
can see like the lines of your finger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see the fingerprints?
Oh, that's weird, huh?
The little
It's like
toe.
a fingerprint.
Those little tiny lines.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
You have those in your toes too, and in your fingers.
Yep. Those are called thermal ridges, and that's your
See 'em.
fingerprints. And this, we actually have fingerprints of a Bigfoot here. And the cool thing about this is we took these, well, I always say we in general and the Bigfoot community. Okay. These were taken to a fingerprint expert with a police fingerprint expert. They actually put it in the database, and it came back as non-human. It doesn't match human patterns. So it's an unknown primate. They actually fingerprinted chimpanzees and gorillas to see if they match those. They don't match those either. So it's a completely different species between it's not a human, it's not an ape.
Kind of cool, huh? I never knew that.
Yeah. So this is another little bit of evidence, a little bit of truth that these things exist. We got fingerprints, and we also got DNA. There's a few years ago, a DNA lab wanted people to send them Bigfoot DNA. So if you got something you think's Bigfoot DNA, send it to this lab. Well, they came up with over 100 samples of DNA that is an unknown primate that doesn't match anything else on the planet.
More proof, huh?
Yeah.
More proof.
More proof. And also, there's about, I know there's 3 for sure, but I'm sure there's way more than that. Hair samples that we've got, and one of those hair samples I collected myself that were studied, and they don't match any other animal on the planet. Not human, not animal.
This might be a good time to explain about Earth DNA.
Yes, it would. That's one of the most exciting things that's happening in the world today of Bigfoot is there's a new thing called, well, you want to talk about Earth DNA or, okay.
Earth DNA.
Earth DNA, all right.
I mean, how can you say that something is, well, how can we identify? I mean, is all DNA totally unique?
It's not. Did you know you have Earth DNA? There's creatures on the, okay. So one of the things that shocked me when I first went to Anthropology 101 in college, My professor said, "Do you know you have tree DNA in you?" And I'm like, "What?" Yeah, there's tree. Okay, so that tree right there, that tree right there has a sequence of DNA in it that matches a sequence of DNA that's in all of us. And it's also on everything else that is living,
including fiddleheads.
yeah, plants, animals, um, anything that has DNA,
Carbon-based life forms.
carbon-based life forms, um, has what's called an Earth DNA. There's a sequence that says, that stamps you that you're from this planet.
Mm-hmm.
And so all that unidentified primate DNA
It
has
has the
that
Earth
stamp.
DNA stamped on it. So that's another little piece of evidence. And there's only one animal on this planet that does not have the Earth DNA.
And it is
The octopus. They're not from this planet.
what?
I know.
Where are they
You
from?
thought they were
Yeah,
aliens
I
all
don't
along,
know.
didn't you? I mean, have
They
you seen
look
them?
like
So we do have
Yeah.
aliens on this planet. They're octopus.
Wow, I never knew that.
They're like my favorite
Yeah,
creature.
I don't know how they got here. So
We don't ask questions. We know they're probably smarter than we are.
yeah, yeah. So you want to see
I
something
wanted to
really
have one
cool?
as a kid.
Yeah.
My parents would let me have one. All right. Oh, this is my favorite cast.
All right. So you guys all out there, and you guys know Cliff Barackman from Finding Bigfoot, that TV show.
Yep.
Well, Cliff gave me this. Okay, and they found this while they were doing the show.
This gives some insight into Bigfoot's preferred diet.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a Bigfooter, and I must apologize. I can't remember where he was from, but it was back east here somewhere. Who tracks Bigfoot by giving them gifts in the woods. They leave gifts out in the woods and see if something collects it. Well, one of the things he did was he'd take Nutella. You know, it's kind of a peanut butter kind of
Chocolate.
stuff.
Doesn't love Nutella.
Okay, so what he would do is take jars of Nutella and set them out in the woods, but he'd leave the lids on them. So something to get into it, you would have to literally unscrew the lid, and that takes.
They would just break the container.
Oh yeah, there's that. Or
you
could
have an opposing.
if you have an opposing thumb, you can open the lid. Well, he found a jar of Nutella in the woods that had been opened, and something stuck its finger in it, pulled some Nutella out, and tried it. And he collected that jar and cast where the creature had put his fingers in, and this is the fingers of a Bigfoot that dipped in a jar of Nutella.
That's awesome.
Well, hold it. Can I see that?
Yeah.
So pair that with
So
some
probably like
That's
some,
the
local
tips of the
Maine
yeah,
honey on
that's how it
bread.
right in the
Picnic.
Nutella. Wow, look how big his fingers are.
Yeah.
Wow.
Don't be small now.
So Bigfoot's like Nutella.
Yeah.
Just like you.
Yeah.
Isn't that how you would want to eat it?
That's how they do eat it.
See, we're definitely
Leave a
related.
spoon next to the sign. Have a spoon on the
Yeah,
side
put
of
a
the
spoon
town.
and a jar of Nutella together. See if they can.
Yeah, very good.
Well, intelligence-wise, they could probably figure that out.
They
Yeah.
probably could. Now, do I think I don't think Bigfoot is us intelligent,
Academically intelligent.
academically intelligent, because we've really seen no evidence of them building tools in any way. I mean,
Or
the most they've done is throw rocks at people.
Mhm.
And an interesting thing, so you were not scared in the woods, nobody's ever been hit by a rock by a Bigfoot.
They have bad aim.
Yeah, either that or it's just a warning thing saying,
Yeah.
Mhm.
shoot, go away. So,
but they use tools.
but they
They use naturally occurring
like
things.
sticks, like chimpanzees will use sticks.
Yeah, and
Okay.
they build shelters. They,
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah.
so they use what naturally occurs in nature to meet their needs.
Now, if there's a Bigfoot, say in Maine, and a Bigfoot from Washington State or Oregon,
Mhm.
would they live in the same? Would they have the same home, so to speak, or
Mhm.
would they eat the same food, or is it depend on where they are?
Well, it probably depends on where they are, but like there's stuff that we have like in Oregon
For instance,
that's we don't have here.
Pacific Northwest Bigfoot probably doesn't want to try fiddleheads.
Something
They
to
keep
these
trying to
fiddleheads.
I'm not
I
buying it.
know.
No,
No.
So I mean, are they vegetarian, or
Okay.
are they?
Are they
mean-
like us?
They're like us. They're omnivores. We have found many um, cases of them killing deer. We have had people actually see them kill deer. We've found deer carcasses in trees, which cougars don't take deer carcasses in trees. And we found deer carcasses that were killed by just something broke its neck, and no claws, no scratches, no bite marks, just something grabbed it and broke its neck. So,
but they also like berries.
but they like berries and well, in the Pacific Northwest, it's a lot wetter than it is here. But I imagine the winters here probably get a lot. It's pretty wet, but where we're from, it rains pretty much. We're in a rainforest basically. So we have a lot of what's called lichen. It's like this moss that grows on the trees, and it literally in the Pacific Northwest, it just covers the trees. I mean, the forests look like some kind of fairy forest in a fantasy world.
It's beautiful.
It is.
Well, that's where they filmed Twilight, so.
But so you'll have to take a trailer out there and
Yeah, put that on the list.
put that on the list and go check out the Pacific Northwest. Cascades, Mount Hood. Okay. It's
The
been
west side, not the east side. East side's not anything great.
yeah, but the west side of Mount Hood's really beautiful. But where was I going?
You're going diet.
Oh, diet. Okay, so they eat lichen. Now humans can't eat lichen. Oh, we can, but it won't hurt us. But we won't get any nutrition out of it. But if you look at the Patterson film and some of the other photos that we've got of Bigfoot, their bodies are longer than ours, which means they got a longer intestinal tract, which means they can get more nutrition out
They
of
can
food than we
digest a
can
lot
because they got a longer
Digest.
digestible tract, and so they gather more nutrients as the food because it's in their bodies longer, before it passes. So, and so they eat meat, they eat fruits and vegetables, they eat fiddleheads, they eat
Stupid.
and depending on where they're at, to get back to your question, is they have in different regions, I'm sure they have different diets. Like in the Pacific Northwest, we have a lot of wild strawberries, wild onions, and
Huckleberries.
Huckleberries. We got tons of huckleberries.
Mushrooms galore.
Yeah. So because so wet, we have a lot of mushrooms. Yeah.
Don't like those either.
So, and we have huckleberries, which is kind of a natural version of the blueberry, which they only grow in the Pacific Northwest. I don't think they have them out here.
No.
In fact, one of our videos is about a Bigfoot getting very upset with people that were picking huckleberries.
Yeah, that's a story. Yeah, if you look at our YouTube channel, there's a one of the videos is called Bigfoot Took My Huckleberries. This family was out in the woods picking huckleberries, and something started throwing rocks at them until they left.
It's his huckleberry patch.
It's his huckleberry patch. Yeah.
Something messing.
Yeah. In fact, one of in the story, someone picked up a log. It was like a stump pulled out of the ground and threw it almost 50 yards over this guy's head. It came out of the woods and went 50 yards over his head and behind him.
Oh, thank you.
So anyway, we are down to 8 minutes.
Woo!
Nice.
And we're getting cold.
Yes, it is. Okay, so yeah.
It's getting chilly.
It is. Yes, just leave the joking alone.
Oh, okay. People are joking. All right.
Okay, so Hilton from Australia said, if trees share the same DNA as us, does that make vegetarians cannibals?
Yes.
I suppose it does.
Whatever. And that very quickly went south to things that we have children on. I'm not gonna go there.
Yes. Don't read the comments. Okay.
No.
So
We have to mark this made for children now.
we don't.
What?
Just tonight's episode.
Just
Yeah, well, that's what I meant.
Yeah, oh, yeah. So we'll keep
So-
those out.
Gotta satisfy the COPPA laws.
Yep. So
So anyway,
we
So-
got time for like one quick one.
one more question, either from our audience or from our family.
Yeah.
Dustin,
Anything else?
anything else?
Anything else?
Come up.
Dylan? You're full of good ones.
I'm gonna think about it.
Okay, I got one
I like looking at these footprints.
more set of footprints for you guys. Look how big that one is.
Look how
The
big
size
that
of that.
mosquito is.
Oh
Oh
my
my
gosh.
lord.
I'm gonna carry the cast away.
That one has crooked toes.
Yep.
Well,
Ooh.
there's a
Oh, wait.
story there.
Oh my gosh, Dustin.
Dustin,
This is
That's where
cripple foot.
you came from.
Dustin's
What?
foot.
What?
Look at the side. That looks like Dustin's toes.
Really? Do you know what's interesting about this one? This is a human ailment that a Bigfoot had.
Oh.
This is an actual human problem called clubfoot.
Clubfoot.
It's
Hmm.
caused by a spinal cord lesion at birth.
Well, Dustin doesn't have a club foot.
Okay. But so if you draw the bone structure out, it actually, and this was done by Dr. Grover Krantz. He drew the bone structure out, and he said, and showed it to a podiatrist and said, if this was a human, he didn't tell him it wasn't a human, but the podiatrist looked at the bone structure and said, oh, that's clubfoot, just like that.
Yeah.
And he goes, if you want to diagnose it without a X-ray, the person will have 2 nodules on the outside of their foot. Guess what this has?
Huh.
2 nodules on the outside of its foot. So this is an actual human ailment that was in a Bigfoot, because this is the other foot.
That goes with it.
So if this was faked, it was faked by a podiatrist. Okay.
And 1,589 times or
No,
something
no,
like that?
1,089 times, because we found
1,089.
1,089 of these footprints in a row.
Oh,
Huh.
wow.
So, and the foot was flexible because as it stepped on different substrates, it would be shaped slightly different, you know. So this is a bit of proof here that, you know, if somebody faked this, they were, you know, an anatomical genius.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't you
So-
think that when they find one foot, they can find multiple, like more than one foot, because Bigfoot walks like us
Yep.
Yeah,
instead of
that's like
jumping like the Hulk?
Yeah. Instead of jumping like the Hulk. Yeah.
it's like they found over 1,000 of those walking along.
Yep.
That was a good one. Usually you only see one
Or
print,
one or
but
2, because it's so hard to leave footprints. It really is. You'd be surprised. And something else, if you guys are out tracking Bigfoot, there's a way Bigfoot walks that if you find footprints like this, and there's been several cases. In fact, Cliff Berkman from Finding Bigfoot, they have this thing called that he investigated. It was in London, the London Trackway. They found, I don't know, it was a lot, like 50 or 60 tracks that were along a lake bed, dried up, or kind of a swampy, muddy lake bed that was drying up.
Get through it.
So anyway, Bigfoot walks like he's walking a tightrope. If you find footprints in a row, humans walk like this. You'll see your foot kind of sliding slightly out, and they're slight left and right, left and right. Bigfoots are straight in line, and they're like they're walking a tightrope, one in front of the other.
Huh.
So with that, we are at the end of our show. We want to thank the Anderson family for joining us. It was so much fun.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having us.
Yeah, and what I
So
would do,
cool.
and what I'm going to do for the Anderson family is I have these T-shirts that say Blue Mountain Bigfoot Research for everybody. So I just need to get your
so
sizes.
cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yes, if you ever go back to real school, you can show them off.
Yeah.
Maybe next year.
Maybe. Oh my goodness. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. We want to invite you back, of course, next Sunday night. We do apologize for not having Footprint Friday up. We will get that going. Yes, because it's just a matter of filming it. We have bones for you. We have bones for you. Danny, don't give up on us. We've got the bones.
So next Friday, our Footprint Friday video will go up and we'll explain all about the bones we found.
Yes. So, if you do happen to be making vacation plans or feel like coming to Millinocket, Maine, people are so friendly here, and we will be giving Bigfoot talks at the campground at least every couple weeks or so as an official Wilderness Edge sponsored, promoted event. So go to Facebook, like Wilderness Edge Campground, and there are other things they offer. They offer ATV excursions. They offer ghost train. That's why we're here, is because I wanted to see the ghost trains and all that's going to happen. So please go to their Facebook page, give them a like, and work them into your vacation plans at some point in the future.
Exactly. And that was a shameless plug.
That was a shameless plug, Marcel. You heard it right from here.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you all so much. It is 8:59 and so we are going to say good night. Send these boys back to where it's warm.
All right.
Good night.
Good night.
Keep it squatch.
Oh, go out and look for Bigfoot.